Hello, everyone. Dion Thompson here from In Her Element, and I'm super pumped about today's chat. This is a topic that is super near and dear to my heart, as I ran a lot of these patterns of disconnection and for a very long time. So I want to dive in, and I've taken some notes because I really wanted to make sure that I covered all the pieces that, hey Joss, that really resonated with me, and there's so much. So do I have notes? Yes. Will I likely read them? Yes. But if you follow me, you know that I wrote them all myself because I'm kind of a bit of a writer. Anyway, so why are we having this chat today? And so this is to talk about how we disconnect from ourselves, and that the deeper we get into these behaviors that we're going to be talking about, the more we need to rely on external validation and approval, and then we sort of lay into the belief that or believe in what others say over listening to our guts and really paying attention to what we know is going on. Hey, Paula. And then in that sense, we're placing our power outside of ourselves. And as we willingly give it away, we no longer take responsibility for our own experiences. And we talked about it last week, that we are in control of our responses to the events that are occurring in our lives. Right, Paula? You know what I'm talking about? So why do we do that? So Brene says that we run these strategies of disconnection or patterns of disconnection, a label that I kind of made up based on my experiences. But we exhibit this disconnection because of shame. Okay. Well, shame's a huge topic, clearly. And so we're not going to delve too deep into the facets of that. But I do really want to be clear on the definition between, or the distinction between guilt and shame, because those are two different things. And I think a lot of people are unclear about that. And so just to be clear, guilt is the feeling you get when you acknowledge that you've done something bad or wrong, and that you feel bad about what you've done. Okay. Shame is the feeling you get, or it's the feeling that you are bad because you've done something wrong. There's a big difference there. Doing something bad and actually being bad or wrong. Guilt is easily managed. It can be, you can relieve yourself of guilt through behavior modification. You change your behavior, you change the thing that you had done wrong, and you no longer feel guilty. Shame, on the other hand, isn't so easily managed. Once you decide that you are inherently bad or wrong or not enough, it becomes very difficult to see how you could change your behavior, or that behavior itself is a choice. So in response to the myriad of shame-inducing environments we find ourselves in, and the shame-laden limiting beliefs that we hold on to, we've developed these patterns to disconnect from that feeling that we're bad, or that feeling bad about who we are. Which unfortunately manifests in ways that end up making us feel more shame. It becomes this vicious cycle, this self-fulfilling prophecy. I am bad. I do this and that to alleviate that sense of that, and I'm trying to prove that I'm worthy of the love and attention that I so deeply desire. And I'm trying to prove to everyone else that I'm worthy of these things, and doing everything that I can so that they don't know my shame. Again, we're still trying to change the behavior, yet the core reasoning for it is not shifting. So unfortunately, then more shame sets in and we disconnect further from our most authentic, or what Martha Beck refers to as our most essential self. Hey, Cindy. And no amount of external validation or approval will ever be enough to quelch that feeling of emptiness that resides within us, no matter how much vodka you pour in there. That can't just be me. Anyway, so what are some of these patterns, and what are we going to do with them? So as I was digging into this, I've read a lot, I've experienced so much, and I wanted to gather some information so that it could be super clear for you guys here. And there's a lot to cover, and I didn't want to really chintz out on anything. Is that a bad word? I didn't want to skip out on anything, so I think I'm going to turn this particular topic into a bit of a two-parter. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk specifically about the imposter syndrome, which is a doozy and I'm highly impacted by. And then next week we're going to be looking at leaky boundaries and people-pleasing and numbing. And perfectionism is tied into the imposter syndrome, so for those of you out there who really connect to that particular label, bear in mind that we are going to be chatting about that a little bit today. So let's dig in. So Dr. Valerie Young, she is a brilliant woman, an expert in the field of the imposter syndrome and a longtime sufferer of it. She has written an amazing book that I would highly recommend to anyone who feels a connection to what we're talking about today. And it's called The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. Again, I'm going to show it to you. And again, it might be backwards on your screen. It is on mine. Anyway. And so for the readers out there, then this may be something that you can connect with. She does provide a really in-depth look. It's a big book. In-depth look at the facets of it and some strategies, including reflective practice, which, as you know, I'm a big fan of. Some reflective practice and reflective questions that you can use while you're sort of in the moment battling this particular beast. So, but to get us started, I am borrowing a little quiz out of her book because I wanted to get an idea here of how many imposters we have hanging out. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions. You do not have to respond. You do not have to do anything. All you have to do is potentially acknowledge it within yourself. So here we go. Question number 1. Do you chalk up your success either at work or at home to luck or timing, or you're at the right place at the right time, or the right person was there, or it's because they liked me. There's a whole series of things that could go along with that, or computer glitches. There was a story of a woman who was convinced that she got in to her as a PhD candidate because she had a really common name and they picked the wrong person, and that they just screwed it up on the computer. Anyway. So the second question, do you believe, well, if I can do it, then anybody can do it? I mean, really, who am I? I'm like no one, and I did that thing. So seriously, I'm sure anybody could do this. It's not that big of a deal. Do you agonize over the smallest flaws in your work? So you're typing something up, you forget a comma, or you use the wrong to. Some fairly minor stuff, depending on how obsessed you may be with grammar. And you think to yourself, well, I'll just go back in. I've already turned my computer off, but it's no big deal. I've seen it. I just can't sit on it. I know I'm late and I've been here for an extra half an hour, but I'm just going to pop back in and quickly add in that comma, fix that little grammar mistakes. But you know what? I'm just going to reread it just to make sure, but I'm going to print it first. I really need to be like super clear on it. And I'll get out my pen and my highlighter to make sure that it's all right. And then, you know what, it can't hurt. I'll just get it done. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Are you crushed by even constructive criticism? seeing it as evidence of your ineptness. So, hey, Dion, great job on that report. I mean, it's no big deal that you added in that one comma where it didn't go. I mean, I don't think anybody noticed. It's no biggie. You know, if you ever want me to help you, like I could proofread your stuff if you're concerned about that. But I mean, again, it was great and everybody loved it. So if you were like me, you didn't hear any of those good things. You actually assumed that those compliments were backhanded, that they were only stated because the person wanted something from you. You somehow made them look good, and but it's not valid or real. I mean, does anybody connect in that same way? I can't possibly be the only one who has a really hard time accepting compliments for great work, good work, half decent work, and then the little running story that goes on in my head about why they could possibly be wanting to say something nice when there's no way, there's no reason for it. You know, I made a ton of mistakes. It took me like 4 times as long. You know, I had to work at it, which means that I'm not good at it. Anyway, those are clearly some things for me. So anyway, when you do succeed, do you secretly feel like you fooled them again? So you get through something, you got a piece of paper, you got a diploma, you got a certificate, you got a something, and you go, oh my God, skin of my teeth. Like, clearly that instructor must be an idiot to not know that I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and whatever. It's fine, whatever, it's no big deal. Do you worry that it's just a matter of time before you're found out? So you're at work and you're just chugging along, doing the things that you're doing and just thinking, oh fuck, please do not ask me. Don't put me on the spot, because then you'll figure it out that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, or I definitely don't know what I'm doing, and I can't be trusted with information, or with projects, and every time they do, I fucking freak out. Is that you? Is that anybody? Okay. Again, you don't have to respond. It's just for you to think about. So if you answered yes, to any of these questions, then you, of all people, know that no matter how much you've accomplished or what nice things people think or say about you, deep down, you're convinced that you're an imposter. You're fake. You're a fraud. You're not worthy of it. It's not real. And everybody else who thinks it is probably really fucked up. So, welcome to the club. There have been studies that prove that 70% of successful women or high-achieving women report feeling like an imposter. Now, I just want to be clear here on what success means. That's not just in business. Hey, Shirley. That's in any facet of life, at every level of every system. It's where anywhere where there's an accomplishment, 70% of women feel like a fraud based on that area of accomplishment. That's fucking huge. So what that means essentially is you are not alone. We are not alone. But what we have done is we become adept at explaining and at minimizing evidence of our success, and and hence we never really own our accomplishments, and we place that power outside of ourselves, and we place the greatness that we have been exhibiting or have exhibited out onto somebody else, onto, like I said, onto luck, onto timing. Because we fooled others into believing that we're brighter than we know that we are. And we live in fear of being unmasked from that. And that fear is perpetuated by shame, which then brings on more shame. So now what? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to explore the 5 types of the imposter syndrome as they were identified by Dr. Valerie Young. And so I am going to, again, I did this last week too. I forgot my stuff before I turned on the camera. You're welcome, everybody. I am going to link to an article in this live. So for anybody who is looking for a quick way to self-identify in relation to the imposter syndrome and which type they may be, I found it super helpful as I was going through it. Not because it helped me to identify that I was one type, it really outlined that I was more than one type, and that it helped me to feel like I had something I can hang my hat on, that it was a thing, that it was real, that it wasn't just in my head, that these thoughts that I was having, it wasn't just me, and that there were strategies and there were things that could be done. So here is the 5 types, and within each type, there's a couple of little sort of quiz or identifier questions. I'm going to read through those. And then if you, like I said, if you feel a connection to one in particular, then we can definitely chat about that. Okay, so the first one is a perfectionist. So I did say that we would be tapping into that and talking about that. So the perfectionism and the imposter syndrome go hand in hand. So perfectionists set excessively unrealistic expectations for themselves. And then when they fail to reach those expectations, they are inundated by self-doubt and worry that they're not measuring up. And they often self-identify as control freaks. I know that when I was a kid, my people in my life commented that I was OCD, and I'm not diagnosed with OCD yet. My penchant for perfectionism was so obvious that everyone just said, oh, that's your OCD, because everything had needed to be just so, such that when we moved into not this house, but the house before, we had this little backyard, we were putting in a garden. I made my husband specifically measure the distance from the fence moving in so that the 2 trees we were putting back there were completely equidistant from the fence and then from each other. And then when we were planting flowers, they had to be all the specific colors had to be matching. And oh my God, it was fucking insane. Anyway, so the other thing about that, at that sort of stage in my life, is I wore that moniker, that title, like a badge of honor. Like, I'm a perfectionist, and if you can come to me and you want something done, I'm going to do it, and it's going to be perfect because I bust my ass and that's what's important to me. Again, I was putting all of my worth outside of myself. So don't come to me because I'm a valuable individual and I have great insights, but come to me because I'll make sure that all the commas are in the right place, and that everything is absolutely perfect and the setup is perfect. And don't worry, I will spend the 20 hours you don't want to spend to make sure that it's absolutely done perfectly. And I carried that around like a big old badge, which I then came to realize was more like a scarlet letter. It was a pain that I was carrying with me. Anyway, so you may ask yourself these questions if you're not sure if you're a perfectionist, although I think that there are many of you who may have that badge. Have you ever been accused of being a micromanager? Do you have great difficulty delegating? Oh, that's a big one. Even when you're able to do so, you feel frustrated and disappointed by the result. I know a lot of moms and women who feel that way about their homes and everything that goes on in their homes, that they feel a great sense of responsibility to absolutely everything in their houses, and that can be quite debilitating. And I've talked to some people about this before, about, I call it sort of this, it was my clean floor analogy. So you are busting your ass to ensure that everything in the house is taken care of, and the last thing you do is you mop the floor, and your family comes in or people come in and they are let's just say they're in a great mood and everybody's happy and they take off their coats and boots and stuff and they're walking around and there's mud everywhere and you think, what the fuck? I just cleaned the floor. Can't you see how hard I worked? Can't you see me? Can't you see my value and my worth and my importance in this family? You just fucking covered it in mud and shit. You covered me in mud and shit. So that was a big one for me. When you miss the insanely high mark on something, do you accuse yourself of not being cut out for your job? And you sit on it for days. So let's call it a high mark or a high level. But the thing for me here is that you sit on it for days, that you let it ruminate in your mind, that it spins around over and over again. Oh, if I could have, and I should have, I could have, and I should have, and I could have, and I should have, and I could have, and I should have. Stop shitting on yourself. Anyway, and do you ever feel like your work must be 100% perfect 100% of the time? So I know a lot of people would be like, no, that's not me. That's not me. Yet their behavior shows differently. They triple time on how much time they spend on doing something, that the amount of effort and energy they put in, which is then of course received with, oh, no, it's fine. It's no big deal. It was nothing. It was easy for me to totally do that. Anyway. This type of imposter is really satisfied as they believe they could always do better, but that's not productive or healthy. The key here is about owning and celebrating our achievements, and we talked a lot about this before. We talked about it in the Courage Council. I talk about it all the time, of acknowledging the good that we're doing, and taking the time to celebrate that, to connect that moment. If it's something that you're going to continue to work on in the future, fine. But take a minute and acknowledge that you've done it, that you've created this thing, that you finished this thing, that your kids survived another day, whatever it is. That's really important. Alrighty. So the next one is called the Superwoman. I know some superwomen. I would say that I spent a lot of time thinking that that was what I needed to do. So the Superwoman is based on the statement that comparison is the thief of joy. The Superwoman compares herself to the real whatever, the real mom, the real good mom, the perfect mom, the real amazing salesperson, the real manager who always nails it, who always seems to do everything right. They're constantly comparing themselves to these enigmas or to these individuals who they've labeled and as better, best even, and put them up there on that pedestal. And then they do everything in their power to try to meet or exceed this individual. And often the attributes that we give this real life super person aren't real, or it's the highlight reel. We're not seeing the pain and the suffering, the work that goes on underneath that person. Or, you know what, maybe they too are suffering from a different level of imposter syndrome and we're not seeing that at all. So they push themselves harder and harder to measure up. But this is really just a false cover-up for their insecurities. And not only that, but the work overload that they put onto themselves has an extreme amount of stress and harm on our mental health, as well as all those relationships that are in our lives that we are trying to build, that we're trying to maintain. Those tend to all fall away because we're working so hard at being something that we're not, or something that we believe we're supposed to be, and we're not achieving it. Again, it's sort of that unrealistic expectation. So here's the quiz. Do you stay later at the office than the rest of your team, even past the point that you've completed the day's necessary work? Do you get stressed when you're not busy and find downtime completely wasteful. Have you let your hobbies and passions fall by the wayside and sacrificed it for the doing that you have to do? Do you even have hobbies and pastimes? I remember vividly right before my second breakdown, my husband, who is a loving, giving, fabulous human, said to me, it really pains me that you don't have any hobbies. You know, he'd asked me what I would want to do for fun, and I couldn't think of anything. If it didn't involve washing the baseboards or maybe entertaining. Entertaining was maybe how I looked at hobbies or pastimes, that I would have people over and I would make sure that everybody was good, and I would make sure I'd have the best food, and there would be great music, and it would be a great environment. There'd be decorations. There was a time in my life where I tried to host themed parties every week just to bring people together. Why? I'm pretty sure because I felt like I needed their approval in order to feel love and attention. Anyway, no passions, no hobbies. That's a big one. Do you feel like you haven't truly earned your title, despite the numerous degrees or achievements or accolades or reminders or just pieces, gold stars and pieces of joy? So you feel pressed to work harder and longer than those around you to prove your worth. So again, this could be taken, it's not just about work, it's truly about all the other life components as well. So the one thing that she put in here that I found was extremely powerful for me is imposter workaholics, or I'm going to call them doaholics, are addicted to the validation that comes from the doing, not from what is done. That's huge. So being busy makes me feel valid, and the more that I'm doing, the more worth I should be generating, the more value that I'm putting out into the world or that I will be seen for. That's a big one. And so the key here is about turning ourselves inward and really starting to do what is necessary to receive internal validation. That recognizing that our self-care or self-love practices are crucial, and they are designed, or we can design them, to help us to move through these experiences and get us to that place where we can celebrate more of who we are. So the third one is the natural genius. People who struggle with this idea of natural genius, their imposterness is based on, if I had to work at it, then I must be bad. And if something is hard, then I'm not going to do it. So natural genius is all borderline heavily on procrastination, because there's an innate sense that if it doesn't come easy, then I can't do it, so I won't do it, and I won't even try. And natural geniuses set their expectations unrealistically high, just like perfectionists. But they judge themselves on whether or not it's easy, not whether or not so much on the specifics of it getting done. So here are the questions. Are you used to excelling without much effort? Do you have a track record of getting straight A's or gold stars in everything that you do? Were you told frequently as a child that you were the smart one in your family or your peer group? Do you dislike the idea of having a mentor because you can handle things on your own? And when you're faced with a setback, does your confidence tumble because not performing well provokes a feeling of shame? So I gotta be honest, because of course I do. This is really hard for me to read. I always had a sense of my perfectionism. I had a sense of my superwomanhood. I had a sense of feeling like a fraud. Yet this one hit me really hard. So the word genius, I still can't sit on that. It's too, I'm not that. It's too fake. I'm a fake if I say that. I'm a fraud if I say that. So bear with me as I'm still processing this. You know, it's not so much that everything I do with ease. It's that I've only chosen to do things that I can do with ease. And what that has done, it has limited my life to such an extent that I constantly feel a sense of regret of all of the things that I missed out on because I wouldn't try. I even changed my major in university based on this particular factor. I was sitting in a class, it was about statistics, and I read over the course outline. I looked at it and said, I can't do any of these things. I have to drop out of this class. And I did. And then as I was there, I was told that by not taking that class, I would have to change my major to a different major that didn't have the same fancy title, by the way. So that was really hard for me. But that was the decision I made that, well, I'm never going to be able to do all of these things. Look, I don't understand this stuff. And so I have to quit now and change the entire course of my education based on the fact that I'm not willing to sit through this class and be reminded that I can't. And that was a pretty profound moment for me. Anyway. What is really helpful for the natural geniuses out there is to take the time necessary and reflect on ourselves as a work in progress, of being able to step into discomfort, remembering that no matter how awesome we are, that we are always learning, and learning occurs outside of our comfort zones. So we are going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. It does not have a bearing whatsoever on our worth, or on our value, or on our greatness. And that is, like most things, it's a practice. All these strategies are practices. They are not quick fixes. That's not going to happen. Because these are sort of long-standing issues that have been percolating through us and have built themselves into sort of the foundation of how we see the world. And so in order to really shift our mindsets around a lot of these issues, it will take practice and support and connection, so that we can learn to reconnect with ourselves. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for me near the end. So the fourth one is the rugged individualist. These are the imposters who believe that asking for help makes them a fraud. So if I don't do it by myself, then I can't take any ownership of the accomplishment, that I must be the solo endeavor here. And as a result, they're very, very strong individualists, but similar to my experience with quitting before I start, an individualist is, without getting support or help from others, there's a real stall in the learning and the growth that could possibly occur. And there's a lot of missing out of really great opportunities, because by doing it alone, we sort of wrap ourselves in this bubble that of our greatness, of whatever that is, of all that we're capable of, and then in this, that's all there is. And if that's the case, then we're really sort of stuck. The last one is the expert. So the people who feel this type of imposterness or imposter syndrome, imposterness, I'm going to make up that word, somehow feel like they've tricked somebody, an employer, a friend, a colleague, whomever, into believing in their ability that they don't believe in themselves. And there's a deep, deep fear of being exposed. And so the experts tend to shy away from job postings unless they supersede the expectations. And I don't know the exact statistics. I'm just going to kind of make them up, but I think they're pretty close, that women tend to only apply for jobs that they meet 100% or exceed the expectations, whereas men will apply for a job where they only meet about 60% of the expectations. And that, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole, and that was just something that I learned, and I thought that was pretty profound, and I believe that is directly related to this particular imposter syndrome. So I forgot to read the rugged individuals questions, but I think you get the idea. And the expert questions: do you shy away from applying for job postings unless you've meet every requirement? Are you constantly seeking out trainings or certifications because you think you need to improve your skills in order to succeed? So this is huge. Most women I know who are sort of stuck in a bit of a transitionary point where they think that there needs to be something more, that they want to do something different, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I need to go to school. I need to go spend thousands of dollars and get more certifications to get more information because I couldn't possibly be good enough the way that I am to start anything new. That I need to go out and gather more information so that people will see me as someone worthy of being listened to or accepted or promoted or whatever it may be. So huge. And for many of us, so unnecessary. By all means, if you want to become a professional in a specific area and you need a specific certification, by all means, fill your boots. But if you're using that methodology in order to determine your worth or your value, then there needs to be a reassessment, a reframing of the why that you're connecting to that particular activity or behavior. And the last thing, do you shudder when someone says you're an expert? Yes. And I think that that's true for a lot of, all of these particular imposter syndromes, that we downplay, we keep the experience small. So whatever the accomplishment is, I know it's fine. It's just no big deal. Anybody can do it. And it was whatever, don't make a big deal out of it because it's no biggie. We need to stop doing that. We need to just stop keeping ourselves and keeping the beautiful, fabulous people around us small. You know what? When you do something awesome, and I'm going to tell you that I think it was awesome, and you try to keep yourself small, I'm probably going to call you on your shit, especially if you're here watching this live. That's one of the things that we need to step into is, yes, it's uncomfortable. And yes, there's a whole myriad of things that go on underneath all of that, but it is part of the process to step in and acknowledge our greatness, our awesomeness. So what I would suggest, what I would invite you to do is click on this article, have a quick look at where you fall in, unless you have already identified specifically what kind of imposter that you are. And then I want you to take a big old deep breath. If you meditate, do that. Take some quiet time. And I want you to treat yourself with a little bit of self-compassion. I want you to talk to yourself about this the way that you would talk to your daughter or your niece or your best friend or another person that you care deeply about who is struggling with feeling lost and alone. I want you to treat yourself the way that you so desperately want to be treated, and value yourself and acknowledge your worth, because it starts with us. And when we start to ground ourselves in those true beliefs, then we will notice that others acknowledge us in the same way. Because what is interesting about my clean floor analogy is that often the people that care deeply about us don't see us as the floor. They see us for who we are, and they love us deeply. And so they don't recognize the impact of walking all over the floor as somehow negative, or somehow a mistreatment of you, of me. But we miss that. we miss the experience that goes along with, they come in and they're so excited to see us. They haven't seen us in a long time, or they haven't seen us since 10 minutes ago, but they love us. And they want to share their positive experiences with us. They want to, just engage in who we are. And we miss that because of our anger and our resentment over feeling that we are being devalued or disrespected. So that is my thought on that. When we are able to really do that for ourselves, the feelings of shame will start to subside. And there's a lot of other work that can be done to explore why we feel the way we do, where they've come from. But again, we're grown-ups now. So whatever information we've taken in at some point in our lives, and however we've contextualized it to bring us to a limiting belief that is somehow rooted in that our worth and our value is somehow rooted external to ourselves, we can now decide to do something different. We can decide to see things differently. And it always comes back to, we have to take the opportunity to take back the power, to take back our power, and to own our experiences and to acknowledge our greatness. I believe that this starts with trust. It starts with trusting ourselves. And I have made up another acronym. It sort of just came to me. So I'm going to share it with you now, and I will share it in the group a little bit later. But some core things that you can stand on, something you could print and put out, something that you can put in your wallet, reminders about the practice that it takes in order to step out from these patterns of disconnection so that we can reconnect with who we truly are, and from there be able to authentically connect with the others in our lives who we truly care about. So it's all about trusting yourself. And so trust starts with T, and it's about taking time. So taking time for self-care, for self-love practices, taking time for self-compassion. It's really about taking time for yourself, and acknowledging the importance and value of that time as not time wasted. And for many of us who I struggle under that productivity is where my worth is, I have reached out to like an accountability partner, of someone who can in the moment just hold space for me so that I can be with myself. And I invite you to seek out someone who could do that for you, someone like a believing mirror, so someone who always sees you for you and your greatness, and for you to be able to say, I need some support on how to step out of this whirlwind of life that I've created in order to create time and space for myself. And that could be taking a class, it could be connecting with a group, it could be any number of things. Whatever it is, it's important to not see whatever the class is about as the purpose, that the purpose is for you to be taking time. So if you take up yoga, great, but don't try to be the best fucking yoga person that there is, and be okay when you can't bend and you can't stretch. And it's not about that. And the more you get involved in those type of self-care practices, the more that you learn that. But in those first few moments where, I can't go do that because I've never done that, and I'm going to look stupid when I do that, and what, everybody's in there can do it. And I can't go take that crafting class because I suck at art and I've never been good at art. And so why would I fucking bother? And you know what? I can't possibly go and take French lessons because I'm old and I can't fucking learn anything. And I'm going to look stupid when I go there. Do you hear how awful that sounds? Do you hear that? That's what we sound like inside our heads. And it's not nice. Remember to treat yourself the way that you would want to be treated, or that you would truly treat others that you care about. So R is for reflect and for reframing. So again, about looking at the unrealistic or insane expectations that we placed on ourselves and reframe it into either an expectation that it can be attained, or reframe it for your why, your purpose. What purpose am I looking to achieve this particular thing? And why would I do that? By being able to shift our language around our expectations, we can give it either more purpose and then more context and more connection. And if the expectation is insane, we would be able to see it for that. So uncomfortable is the new comfortable. So again, no learning occurs in our comfort zones. And so in order to learn and grow and to experience more and to not miss out, we need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And when we are there, be so excited that we're there. Because when you are in that state of discomfort, if we started to reframe that a little bit and start to tell ourselves, hey, this is awesome. That means that I'm learning something new, that I'm growing, that I'm stretching, that I'm having a new experience, that I'm creating new memories, that I'm building new relationships. Again, turn it to the why are you doing this? And it will take you further and propel you forward. S is self-compassion. Self-compassion is the truest form of self-love that there is. We are not perfect. We have flaws, we make mistakes, we do crazy things, and we learn and we grow, and we are human. And when we are able to practice that fine art of self-compassion, and when we talk about it next week, we're going to talk about boundaries and how absolutely vital they are to those who are the most compassionate. Perhaps it's an opportunity to set boundaries for yourself. And so what is okay and what is not okay with you? So it's not okay to run myself ragged so that I get, so I don't eat properly, I don't sleep properly, and I turn into a psycho bitch and my kids suffer. It's not okay that I'm missing out on new experiences or that I miss date nights so that I could somehow please this person at work who doesn't have the same level of value in my life. Setting boundaries for yourself is truly a compassionate act for yourself. And the last T is this too shall pass. So that has been coming up for me over and over and over again. And it's not about sitting mired in the shit and just hoping to God it goes away. It's about acknowledging the finiteness of experiences and that our power in and our ability to see the other side and to recognize that we will be better for it, and we just need to wait out the storm. So this too shall pass. So that is my rundown of the imposter syndrome. Like I said, this particular topic really, really hits home for me. And I know that for some of my close friends, this hits home for them too. Maybe like attracts like there, I'm not sure. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I want to thank everyone who's catching it on the replay, who might be catching it on YouTube. It means so much to me to be able to be here, to be able to step into this space. Right before this, a lot of little tiny things were happening in the house, and every little tiny thing that happened, a thought came up in my head and was like, well, don't do the live, okay? Because you know what? You're not going to be ready. You're not going to be, you haven't got it all figured out. You know, the power went out for a while because we're getting a renovation done. And I'm like, well, if I don't have power, then I can't do the live. I couldn't possibly, just shine a flashlight on myself because that would be stupid. I really came up with all these reasons over and over and over again. And you, knowing that you were here, knowing that this group is here, knowing that there are people who believe in me in a way that I want to be believed in, it allowed me to, I heard them. I heard those thoughts. I heard those, I wouldn't say voices, I don't hear voices. But I was able to set them aside, and I was able to step into this knowing it was not going to be perfect, knowing that I would make mistakes and that not everybody would love it. and I'm here anyway. So thank you for that. It means so, so much. As always, I am so eager to hear how this landed for you. Throw it up in the group, message me, let me know where you're at. It's the thing about these patterns of disconnection is that we're disconnected. And at the core of how we're going to move forward is our ability to reconnect or to reach out and connect. And through those connections, we will build the strength necessary in order to do everything that we need to do. So I invite you to connect. I implore you to connect. And I hope that you have a fantastic evening and happy Motivator Monday. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great night, everybody.